First and foremost, I would like to welcome everybody over here. And hello, everyone. Good evening. And now, welcome to the official launch of Polkadot India. And over here, the learning possibilities are going to be endless. So, without further ado, let's start the journey. Have you heard of these terms like gas fees, low throughput, latency, transparency? I'm sure you would have heard about these terms, which keep us agitated when it comes to running our projects on various platforms. But all of these things, if are to be taken care of along with scalability, then I'm sure we need something solid like Polkadot, right? So what is Polkadot? Now, Polkadot is a software that seeks to incentivize a global network of computers to operate a blockchain on top of which other blockchains could be operated. This is where the actual dApps come in, your very own blockchain. Well, in this way, Polkadot is one of a number of competing blockchains aiming to grow an ecosystem of dApps or cryptocurrencies. To begin with, Polkadot is designed to operate two types of blockchains. A main network called a relay chain, where transactions are going to be permanent, and user-created networks called parachains. Now, parachains can be customized for any number of users and fed into the main blockchain, so that parachains can benefit from the same security of the main chain. Well, you can say that you're renting out their property to build your own palace, right? Now the possibilities are just endless. Now, since you're paying the rent, so it is their responsibility to provide you the security. This way, the transactions are going to be secure and accurate using only the computing resources required to run the main chain. Now, if it is your palace and you're just taking care of your property, so it becomes really private, right? In comparison to the other running chains. Well, the Polkadot team believes this design will let its user perform transactions more privately and efficiently, creating blockchains that don't disclose user data to the public network or that otherwise process a greater number of transactions, right? Now, let's actually understand how does Polkadot work. So the one that you see over here, this green line, right? This green circumference, this is known as the relay chain. And this black dot that you see, this is known as a slot. The rectangular box that you see over here, this is going to be your very own dApp, okay? A dApp or a parachain. This entire thing, a piece, is known as a parachain. Now, these three lines that you see, these are nothing but these are the validators. Those who are going to validate the blocks that your parachain is providing and to put onto the main relay chain to get it finalized on the relay chain. And the links that you see on top over here, these are known as collators. Now, I'm sure we would actually go on to all of these things in more detail, but let's first understand that what is the relay chain all about. This is the main Polkadot blockchain. This is the network where transactions are finalized. Now, to achieve a greater speed, the relay chain separates the addition of new transactions from the act of validating those transactions, right? Now, what are parachains? Parachains, as I've explained earlier, these are going to be custom blockchains that are going to be created by you. You are going to utilize the relay chain's computing resources to compute those and put them in an accurate manner onto the relay chain. Then there is a third element also known as bridges. Now, come on, who doesn't want a mechanism or a way to interact with the outer world? We all want to know what is going on in the space, right? We all want to book a property onto the moon, right? Well, that's what bridges do. They allow the Polkadot network to interact with other blockchains. Work is underway to build bridges like blockchains like EOS, Cosmos, Ethereum, and Bitcoin, where you could actually start swapping the tokens or any sort of an application could be deployed without a central exchange. Now, to keep its network in agreement about the state of the system, the Polkadot relay chain uses a variation of proof of stake consensus called nominated proof of stake. This system allows anyone who stakes DOT by locking the cryptocurrency in a special contract to perform various kind of roles necessary for its operations. Now, since you are here, you would have heard about these terms very, very frequently, like validators. As in like other chains, the validators over here also perform the same job. They validate data, but they validate data in parachain blocks. They also participate in consensus and vote on prospects. Then there are nominators who are part of the nominated proof of stake. Those are the nominators. They secure the relay chain by selecting the trustworthy validators. Then there are collators. Collators are the nodes that store a full history for each parachain and aggregate parachain transactions into a block for addition to the main chain, the relay chain. Correct. Then we have fishermen. What is a fisherman? This is nothing but the security police of the complex, the rent that you were paying for the property, right? That always monitors the Polkadot network and reports if any bad activity is happening, if anybody is actually behaving really weird as a validator. So the fisherman's job is to complain it to the other validator. Right. Now, so these are the properties which make Polkadot governance pretty strong. Now, these include dot holders, the council, and the technical community. Now, anyone who purchases dot tokens can use their dots to propose changes to the network. The council, these are elected by dot holders. Council members are responsible for proposing changes to the entire ecosystem. The technical committee, these are composed of teams actively building on Polkadot. This group can make special proposals in the event of an emergency. Members of the technical committee are voted in by council members. Well, now this for me is pure decentralization, whereas Ethereum 2.0 has still decided to keep governance off chain. Now you would actually ask me, why Polkadot? So there are so many reasons that I've already provided to you that why Polkadot, but still a couple of more. The main point is Polkadot's design goals. When we started working on the blockchain platforms, we always end up about one particular issue, that how do we test it? There are, on Ethereum, you have multiple testnets. Similarly, various platforms provide you different kind of testnets, but none of the projects like Polkadot provides you an actual deployed or tested real-time canary network like Kusama, where you can actually test your project on chain and how is it behaving in real time. For me, this sets out to be, a big advantage of considering why Polkadot. Now it sets out to be more scalable than the competition and uses shards, which we have already explained as parachains. This helps in order to, do the parallel transactions in a parallel manner. This allows for more transactions per second in comparison to Ethereum. Now, whenever you actually go on Google and you type the word Polkadot, I'm sure there would be multiple words combined together in the search query. They get auto-updated with Polkadot or Rust and Substrate. So I'm sure you would have heard a lot about this, but reading that in a single line could be very, very overwhelming, right? So we are here to make things really easy to understand and benefit for you as a contributor, a learner, a developer, or an enthusiast. So see, like any other piece of software, Polkadot is actually built on top of other technologies. Now, if you want to understand Polkadot, so it is actually a layered stack, and Polkadot sits on top of it. Polkadot is actually built in Rust. In fact, Rust is currently being used by all the big-time blockchain applications and big-time giants like Facebook, where they're ramping up their internal developer support for Rust. And not only Facebook, it is being constantly ramped up by AWS, Google, Microsoft, and Mozilla, which have been part of Rust Foundation since before. Now, why Rust? Because for me, Rust can build end-to-end applications. So the whole point is that learning Rust in comparison to a language where you can just write smart contracts like Solidity, but not create an entire application. So that is slightly tricky, right? So you will have to figure out multiple ways to actually deploy your application rather than just writing contracts. So why not pick up an entire language which can help you build an application? That is Rust. So let's understand about Rust then. Rust is a systems level programming language that aims to be fast, reliable, and efficient. Now, just a brief idea about the semantics. Rust uses the concept of borrowing that allows it to be safer than other low-level programming languages such as C. Also, as a developer, if I have to think, There is no first type creation. Defining a type literally doesn't require any methods, such as constructors, getters or setters, and destructors to get off the ground. While I'm speaking about all this, something suddenly popped in my head. So if you create a struct in Rust, and on top of that, if you just give an attribute known as derive serialize, it is the job of the compiler, the Rust compiler, to actually convert it into a type of the field that you are defining and put it back into a JSON format. So as a developer, you don't have to worry about these small things. The compiler takes care of. Now, one major benefit of building Polkadot in Rust is that Rust has support for compiling code down to the binary code, WebAssembly. Now, what is WebAssembly? Well, it is just a standard for portable programs that will run consistently across different systems and platforms. I'm sure most of you would have already guessed by the name that the major platform that WebAssembly supports is the web. Well, WebAssembly is popular and is supported by all the tech giants. Now, coming back to Polkadot. So why do we need WebAssembly for this? Well, Rust and WebAssembly are great fits for Polkadot, which needs to run a consistent client. By client as in a node, that is kind of your chain that you're trying to run over different platforms by compiling the runtime into a common executable format. Polkadot is able to upload the runtime onto the chain. Now, this is a key requirement of performing on-chain upgrades in an efficient way as Polkadot does. Now you would be thinking, what is runtime? Well, you can call this as the business logic for your own chain that you will be building on Polkadot and ship it in an executable format. That's how your chain is going to be different in comparison to the other chain logics. Now, this was the bottommost layer. Now let's move up in the stack. The next major component is Substrate. Substrate is a framework for creating blockchains. So the whole idea of building Substrate was to make the code very modular for all the developers to plug and play with the common patterns that could be abstracted and made building logics much easier. So it was all about extracting those key features and classes that were already being utilized by various blockchains. And these repeating pieces could be shared by Polkadot and their subsequent blockchains, also known as parachains. So out of the Polkadot code base came the Substrate. You can assume it like they are passing on their DNA to you so that you can just plug and play by just changing a couple of things and can create your own parachain. So this is just a collection of building blocks for creating blockchains. So as a developer, if you're given a code base, which is pure plug and play for logics like networking, the transaction queue, and implementation of stuff like token balances even, which are already complete. And you just need to use these abstractions in form of traits like interfaces in other languages so that you can only focus on the business logic of your chain code by implementing the runtime. So for the team, for the developers, this greatly reduces the time to develop new blockchains from few months to just few weeks. So Polkadot is like the ecosystem that has been built on top of these workable and useful pieces of software. So it's safe to say that Polkadot is a product and Substrate and Rust are the tools that have been used to build it. Now, but that doesn't mean that Rust and Substrate are not product themselves. Obviously, these are the products built by their own teams. Now, before we proceed ahead on the actual development path of this, we, as part of Polkadot India, we are planning to have monthly Substrate Saturdays for learning the concepts and implementing those. We will be sharing a curriculum very soon and the GitHub repo for the regular updates. Now, in case if you have any questions, so please feel free to ask.